Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Dr. Craig Kasper from NYHD and the Institute for Hearing and Balance. We're back again with another episode of the Audiologist at Home episodes. And today I've got Dr. Naeem with me again. What's up, Dr. Naeem?
Hello again. How are you?
I'm doing great. How's the city treating you?
It's still pretty quiet out there, but hopefully it'll be over soon.
Yeah, I think we're getting more positive news every single day.
I think so.
So today, from what I understand, you have a question for me. So
I do.
I'm going to let you shoot away there.
So, as you know, we see a lot of musician patients, and I guess the question that I get a lot is, what's the main difference between in-ear monitors versus standard musician plugs?
Gotcha. Okay, so they're two very different technologies. Let's start with the musician's plugs first. So musicians' earplugs, they come in a generic form where you could just kind of pick them up off the shelf and put them in your ears. We also make them in a custom version, which usually lasts for a lot longer in terms of their durability. But basically what they do is a standard earplug that's solid reduces more high frequencies than low frequencies. And for someone who might be using a power tool, let's say, or who's just trying to reduce as much noise from the environment, that's a really good choice. But when you have a musician who still wants to hear things clearly without reducing the quality of sound, we want to use a filtered musician's plug. And now these filters have been around for years, and some of the most popular ones are ER or edemotic research filters. And there's a couple of other different flavors of manufacturers out there that make these. But basically what they do is they'll reduce sound equally across the frequency range. So when you listen to something like music, the sound is still clear. You don't disrupt the quality of sound in any way whatsoever.
Right.
We actually see professions like some of our dentist colleagues come to us to wear these because you still can hear what's going on in the environment. It just reduces the sound to make it safer so you're not damaging your hearing. Now, in-ear monitors are a completely different breed of in-ear product, and they're specifically made so musicians can monitor themselves when they're on stage. Historically, you would have these big speakers that are facing the musicians so they can hear their voice or they can hear their guitar or their drums or anything else. And those speakers are facing right at the musician, not the speakers that are facing out into the crowd.
Right.
The purpose of that is so they can kind of monitor themselves in relation to what's going on with the other band members and to make sure that they're playing in time, they're playing in key, all of that. The problem is when you have a bunch of those speakers on stage, plus the speakers that are facing the audience, plus the musicians with their instruments, it results in this upward escalation of noise and sound over time because everybody's doing what's called competitive monitoring. They're always, one person can't hear themselves, so they turn their volume up. Then the other person turns their volume up, and then it's up and up and up and up.
Mm-hmm.
An in-ear monitor gets rid of all of those speakers on stage and literally puts the sound, the speaker, directly inside the musician's ear. Now, there's a lot of benefits for that. The first benefit is that you have the ability to control your own volume, and you have the ability to reduce your volume on stage because if all of the musicians on stage have in-ear monitors in, ultimately they're not competing with each other.
Right.
The problem is that in-ear monitors are not hearing protection by design. So a study was done years ago where they actually looked at preferred listening levels through the speakers and through in-ear monitors. And the reality is that they weren't that much different. So what that's telling us is that there's a preferred listening level, and most musicians love their preferred listening level too loud.
Right.
Music sounds good loud. That's the reality of life. And they have trouble sometimes kind of pulling their volume back. So that's one downside, is that it's not hearing protection by design, but if it's used appropriately, it can be used to protect hearing and reduce volumes on stage.
Mm-hmm.
Other things, other positives, other negatives actually, is the fact that when you wear most in-ear monitors, it can be somewhat isolating where you cannot hear what's going on around you, and you don't hear, if you're a musician on stage, you're playing to a crowd, you don't hear the crowd as you want to, so you kind of feel a little disconnected. That can be fixed with a couple of different engineering tricks, putting microphones out and kind of feeding that through the in-ear monitor. Some in-ear monitors now have ambient microphones built into the monitors themselves that the musician has control over, which is nice because they can develop their own mix of what they want to hear from the environment versus what they want to hear through their in-ear monitors. ultimately it's a matter of education also, right? We want to make sure that whoever's using in-ear monitors or hearing protection is using them safely so they're not causing hearing loss. So sorry for that rambling on there. This is something that I've been talking about for years, but
No, it's great. It's very informational.
it's an interesting topic because a lot of younger musicians want to use in-ear monitors, but they might not be using them appropriately.
So I guess it seems like it depends on the environment that they're in, and exactly what they want to hear. So yeah, I guess
That's actually a really important point because the environment does come into play. So, and it also depends on the type of venue that you're playing in. You know, little piece of advice that I'll give musicians, and I've given this throughout the years, is that if you're kind of starting out and you're playing in your local bar, let's say, and the person who's doing sound for you is the bartender, right?
Mhm.
They're not really, they don't have your best interest at heart in terms of your hearing conservation components of this. They just want the place to, they want you to play, and they want the play, they want everybody to have fun. So I would always suggest using custom musicians earplugs in those environments if you are okay with that. Traditionally, in-ear monitors we would see with kind of the bigger venues, touring bands, etc. We have seen that use trickle down into the semi-professional and the amateur musician. Again, I think it's all fine as long as we're using them appropriately and we're mindful of the fact that they're not hearing protection, that we can cause damage if we listen to them too loud and too long. One point along that also I just want to end with is that there are some companies out there that manufacture devices where you can actually measure the sound level that's coming out of the in-ear monitor,
Mhm.
and they give you kind of a safe range. I think that that's a really, really important technology that if anybody's interested, they can always contact us and we can give specific information about that. But we're not going to publicize necessarily, or we're not selling a specific brand
Right.
of in-ear monitor. So
Right. Well, that's really interesting. And just one last question.
sure.
I know that the filters that you mentioned that come in those custom musicians earplugs, there are different ranges when it comes to the strength of the filter. Is there something, and I guess it's different with everyone's case, but someone who, let's say, goes to concerts frequently, which filter would you necessarily recommend?
That's a really, really good question. We determine the filter strength based on what the person's exposures are and what their planned exposures are. So if you're going to a concert kind of every once in a while, you're not standing right on top of the speakers and you're not right on the front of the stage, you could probably get away with a 15 decibel reduction. Now, again, we have to do a little bit of math in house and try to make sure that we're guiding you to the right filter, but a 15 decibel reduction is good for most environments. If you're spending all day at these festivals and you love being right on top of the speakers, you're definitely going to want to go with a stronger filter that reduces more sound. And
Mhm.
again, just because it reduces more sound doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be detached. If anything, it's probably going to relax you a little bit more because you won't feel so stressed out from the concern of causing hearing loss.
Right.
And the interesting thing with a lot of these filtered products is that you have the ability to conduct a conversation in those noisy environments better for some reason. That's just from personal experience. I've been wearing them for years. So
That's really interesting. Thank you.
my pleasure. So we appreciate the questions that you guys are sending in to us. If you have a question that you'd like either Dr. Naeem, Dr. Zweig, or myself to answer, you can send it to info@newyorkhearingdoctors.com. And with that, I will say thank you, Dr. Naeem. It's really good to see you again.
Thank you. You too. And we'll see you soon.
Take good care now.
Bye.